Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my cohort in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It is great to be here, and I'm so very, very excited to have our next interview. She was a first read with Amazon, and she's a best-selling author, and her debut novel is just taking the world by storm. Welcome, Jennifer Moorhead. It's great to have you here.
Wow, it's great to be here. Thank y'all so much for having me on today.
It's so much fun. And I always start off with one question and feel free. I don't know if there's a couch in your room if you want to, get comfortable, because I'm going to ask you about your childhood.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So I like to kind of delve into this a little bit to find out with every writer, do you think your childhood contributed to you becoming a writer? And, what was your childhood like? Were you extroverted, introverted? Did you kind of live in the world of books? Tell us about it.
Oh, absolutely. And, I love this topic because it's a topic I explore with all of my characters. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So definitely I was introverted as a kid. I loved the school library. I spent a lot of time in there. I read a lot. I read a ton of books. So I think that part of my childhood definitely contributed to becoming a writer. But I also grew up in a home with storytellers. Both of my maternal grandparents told stories all the time. I mean, I grew up listening to their stories, and there was always, anytime we were around, somebody would bring up a story and start to weave, us through this generation that am sad to say is we're losing, because it was so important to me to hear these stories, and most of them were in Tennessee or West Texas and all of these places. And I thought, well, this is, they would always set up the setting for me. And then my dad also told stories, and his stories were always a little scary. And I joke because my mom was always yelling at him, telling him, he was scaring the children. But he always had these creepy, fantastic stories of this old house in East Texas where he used to go visit, his great grandmother, and the attic was haunted. And so there was always this spooky element to it. So those things combined, I think, really lent themselves to me wanting to tell my own stories and to creating these worlds, and of course making them a little creepy, because that's what I knew. That's what I grew up on.
Right. So how old were you when you started writing?
As a kid, I don't remember writing a ton of things. I mean, probably I was writing with a crayon, but really I started to write more in college. So I wasn't very young when in terms of, writing as a kid or something. But in college, I took a lot of writing classes. I took a poetry class that really cemented something inside of me. I loved the use of language and poetry, and the importance of every word. I mean, even choosing the word a over the word the, there's something in that just stuck with me, and I loved it. And I just didn't really understand how to apply that to a novel until later in my 20s, when I actually went back to school and learned how to write a novel. And then I said, this is it. I want to do this. This is so fun.
Do you still read poetry
I
from
don't
time to
read
time?
as much. No, I don't. I don't read as much. I read a lot, but I read, so much fiction. I read
Right.
tons of thrillers. Um, I also like historical fiction too, but I find myself wanting a longer story now. And so I haven't gone back to poetry as much as when I started.
What was your undergraduate degree in?
It was in liberal arts
Okay.
at LSU, and it was basically, I took everything I could.
Sure.
Anything and everything. I took a ton of literature classes and
Mhm.
speech classes, and by this point, I had left behind the introverted part of childhood,
Yeah.
and I discovered speech and in writing speeches, and keeping people's interest, and having it, a little time frame to tell a story, out loud. And I loved it. I thought it was really a fun exercise, and it really helped my writing eventually too.
So when you went back to school to learn how to write a novel, which, I mean, it takes a lot to learn how to write a book. I know most people think, not most, that's not correct, but a lot of people think if they can write an email, they can write a book, and it's such a different beast. So when you went back to school to do that, did you decide I'm going to start writing books? Was that part of a definitive thing for you?
It was, and it was continuing education classes. So, there wasn't this huge commitment. It wasn't an MFA. It was more, okay, I knew I wanted to write a novel. I just didn't know how to do it. And I also knew, well, I was a good student, so maybe I'll put those two things together and figure this out, in a classroom setting. And I think I just got really lucky because my professor was an amazing woman, who took us all. We had a very small class, and she kind of took us under her wing and helped us, from page one, and just what this is going to take. And she even got us to go to Wichita Falls one weekend as a group, and we got to have dinner with Larry McMurtry. And
cool.
It's one of my favorite books. And so we were all just sitting there at dinner with him, just staring at him. I'm thinking, I haven't ever written a book yet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. So I got a lot of really good, education and practice with writing through that class. It was great.
That's terrific. Yeah, because it's hard to do. It's hard to learn how to write a book. And that doesn't always happen at the academic level. A lot of times you have to go to conferences to learn. So to find somebody, who can actually teach it at the university level is wonderful. So yeah, you got very lucky. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And I still go to conferences and things like that too.
Yeah.
Always learning.
We're forever on the learning curve. I mean,
yes.
One of the things I love about writing, right?
Oh, I know.
It never ends.
Yeah.
And online classes, I'm in. I'm like, yes, just keep going with your craft.
Yep, absolutely. So tell us about your debut novel. Let's hear all about that.
Okay, well, Broken Bayou is about a troubled child psychologist who returns to a small Louisiana town to protect her secrets, and she winds up having to protect her past. So this book started years ago. I did not think this was going to be the first book I published. I have 3 other books that I've written. The third book, I was working on it at the time. I sent it to a developmental editor, a freelance editor, because I was trying to get an agent with that book. And I thought, well, it needs a little shaping up. So I sent it off, and I was, just anxious to get it back and start working again. And I had this idea for Broken Bayou that I had been sitting on for some time. And I thought, well, maybe I'll do the first draft of that book and, give me something to do creatively while the other book is being edited. And so it was about to be November, and I did NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month.
That's right, yeah.
You get your first draft done in a month, and the goal is 50,000 words. And I'm sort of insane in that I love a challenge like that. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do NaNoWriMo. And I did it with Broken Bayou, and I wrote the first draft in the month of November. And so I wrote 50,000 words. I did it. It was a hot mess, but it was a draft. I had something to edit.
There you go.
Right. Yep.
I put it away and got the next book back, with the previous book back. And so I took that book and kind of ran with it and left Broken Bayou alone for many years. And while I tried to sell my third book, which I did get an agent for that book, he and I eventually ended up going separate ways. It was very amicable, but we didn't gel, I don't think, like we planned on. And that book did not sell to publishers. And so I thought, well, I might self-publish Broken Bayou, because I'd kind of run the gauntlet and seen what traditional publishing was kind of like. And so I pulled it back out and started editing. And my writing friends said, this one's better. You may want to get an agent again. And so I did. And I got an agent. And then and then we sold it. It was just insane. So it was this very long process that all of a sudden started going very quickly once
Yeah, yeah.
that ball started rolling. So
Now, wasn't this kind of partially based on a true story you read one time and you thought, oh, what if?
oh yes, I still have the article. And
Ooh,
I
wow.
read it in the USA Today, but the AP had picked it up. It was actually a story from the Times-Picayune in New Orleans. And it was about a school teacher who went missing after leaving a bar in New Orleans. And they believed that her car was in a bayou near New Orleans.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it took months for them to find her car. Unfortunately, yeah, it was in there, but it was an accident. It was just an accident, but they were bringing divers in to search the bayou. And one of the divers said, bayous make great dumping grounds. And I just thought, okay, what if the real story is what else they find? It's not necessarily the story of the missing school teacher. It's kind of, okay, well, we're going in the bayou to get her, but then we find something else. And that idea just kind of started rolling around in my head. And I had these characters that I had been sort of talking to for a while. Well, maybe this is their story, maybe
Yeah.
somehow these two things need to come together. And that's what happened in NaNoWriMo. I was like, okay, I'm going to pull the scenes I've written about this family, and I'm going to pull this newspaper article, and it just started gelling. And I knew that was it. That was the story.
Well, this story is about past and present and about family issues and family histories and family intrigues and the way you handled it all in this story. I mean, the way I stumbled on this book, actually, NetGalley sent it to me because I review books, and they sent it to me, and I thought, So I opened it up and read the first page. I said, oh, yeah, I want to read this, especially since it mentioned the Roll Tide. So,
Of course.
so anyway, I read it and I loved it, but it is a very rich story with a lot of history, a lot of angst, a lot of family drama, and I love those stories, and you did such a great job.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. I think it's so interesting. I've always loved psychology, but I think the psychology behind the decisions we make as human beings is so interesting. And I love that childhood connection. And unfortunately, I just love to torture my characters a little bit. And usually I
Yeah,
do that.
exactly, or
I
a
do
lot,
that.
as it were.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm like,
so,
I'm sorry.
so what's your process? Are you an outliner, or are you just sit and write?
Oh boy, I sit and write.
Yeah.
I sit and
Did you
write.
know the ending of this story when you started it? Yeah. You discovered it on the way, didn't you? Yes.
I did. I
Yes.
did.
I love that.
And that to me is so fun. It's very scary, but there's a phrase I love, and it's called leap and the net will appear. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's how I like to write. I'm
I
like,
like that. I'm going to steal it. I like it.
and so
That's fantastic. I think that's a note on your computer for writers.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I have a lot of sticky notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sticky notes around me, but
So you
that's
had an idea for a story,
yeah.
and it revolved around a car in a swamp, basically. and then you started writing it. And how far into the process did that, what I like to call the pivot point in the middle of the story, where things change, before you said, aha, I got that, and then, oh yeah, and this is how it's going to end? How far did you write? How many pages, words, whatever, before you had that aha moment? Because I do the same thing. I pantsed it. I just fly, but there comes that moment, like, now I got this story.
I mean, you know what? I have to tell you, it was probably after that first draft. I mean, it was probably 50,000 words, because I wrote those words so fast. And when I went back and reread it is when I went, wait a minute. And I found my middle, but it was way far down in the book. Like it was close to in the third act. I do like to write in acts. I have a little bit of structure, but my middle was in the third act. And I was like, wait. Let's move that all the way up to the middle. And then I started going, okay, now I see how things are going to be different, because that's got to happen way sooner. And that was sort of my aha moment in those first editing drafts when I pulled it back out and just I had it in there. I just didn't realize where it should have been in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course it changed again. You know, I had several aha moments because I had several drafts with this book. I mean, it was a labor of love, this book.
But isn't that fun?
So worth it.
Isn't that fun discovering the stuff along the way?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It makes you excited to sit down in front of the computer.
Was. I mean, oddly enough, I really liked editing. I love that idea of getting, you know, your ball of clay and starting to carve out little pieces and the little tendrils that fall off. Sometimes you pull them back in and glue them back on. You're like, wait, I need that back in. So it's a fun puzzle to work out.
Yeah, I'm the same way. First drafts I find laborious. You know, when you're actually creating a story and you're not sure it's going to work, but you keep going and pretty soon you have those ahas, you got a story. But it's when you go back and fix it, that's the fun part.
Yeah. You make it read like the wind. Yep.
Oh, yes. It's just, that's where those little magical things are. And sometimes you find things and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't even mean to do that, but here it is. Okay. Let's
So cool. So if you were just starting out today, and you were going to start your writing journey, what advice would you give to yourself knowing what you know now?
Gosh. I think I would say, you know, be more positive would probably be it. Maybe try not to doubt myself so many times. I mean, that little writer voice can be quite daunting sometimes.
And I think that's universal. I mean, really with all writers.
Yes. And I think I would say, you know, trust myself a little more and maybe give myself a break some. Like, you know,
that's great. That's great advice, but I got some news for you. I'm working on like my 26th or 27th book, and it's always about 40,000 words. That little voice says, "You are an idiot. You don't know what you're doing." And this story's never going to work. Exactly. So and then it starts screaming at you. You say, "Go away, leave me alone." It's true.
Oh my God, it's true though. I mean, you know, it's just one of those things you have to fight being a writer. It is.
Part of it.
Self-doubt.
So what's next for you? What's going on?
So I'm working on another book now that is going to be a companion book to Broken Bayou. And I'm still fleshing it out, so I'm not giving away too much on it, but there is a character in Broken Bayou that sort of stayed with me and started waking me up in the mornings and saying, okay, now it's time to tell my story. And so I'm exploring that right now. I'm getting to about that point, about 40,000 words. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? Okay. So I'm working on that and trying to get that going.
So is Willa in this one?
She is, but she's not a main character.
Okay.
She's sort of in the background.
All right.
Background of this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
It's not necessarily a sequel. It's more just a companion book.
Right. Cool. I like that.
That's very exciting. Well, Jennifer Moorhead, it's been great to have you.
Fantastic.
And the book is Broken Bayou, and I know they can buy it on Amazon. And it's just, you know, we're going to have you back because you're a fantastic interview. And obviously you've got a lot of great things ahead of you. Can't wait to read all your future work as well. And thank you so much. And I also want to ask all of our viewers to please click the thumbs up. That helps us with our algorithms. It gets these interviews out into the world. And if you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and you will hear whenever we've got a new interview, which is pretty regularly. And I think that's all I have, Doug. How about you?
And Jennifer, thank you. It's been a pleasure and just great having you here. I can't wait for your next book because I love this one so much. So that kind of concludes Get to Know here on the Outliers YouTube channel, but we will be back, as you know, soon with more great interviews. Until then.